Close reading is not one size fits all, and it can be very intimidating. So once I learned how to teach close reading to my younger students and adapt it so that it was meaningful for them, it was really beneficial to my classroom. It is so hard to teach close reading to younger students. It always seems to be more applicable to middle school students or high school students, and then our younger students it kind of goes above their heads. I wanted to really share what I was learning, and so I made this free close reading guide, and you can download it. The link is in the description below, and I'm going to show you how you can use that to adapt close reading for your classroom as well. Let me show you the benefits of close reading first, and so that way you're not intimidated by it and you can see what I'm talking about. You're going to want to subscribe to the Teaching Firsties channel because there is a whole playlist on close reading lessons, not just this one too. There's about 10, 11? Lots of good things that you can use for teaching your students. I was so intimidated by teaching close reading. You know, I was a confident reading teacher, but I didn't know how to teach close reading to my students. They were first graders, and I didn't know how to adapt it. I graduated from college in 1998, so like a fair long time ago. Anyway, I went to Hope College in Holland, Michigan. It was a strong education program. Like, I feel confident in what I learned, but you know, the age, it didn't do well. We didn't learn how to teach close reading because it wasn't a thing back then. I remember sitting in one of my classes and we were just learning about state standards, and they weren't even a thing yet. I think one of my professors mentioned, oh yeah, just wait, state standards are coming. And we're like, what? Can you imagine not teaching with state standards or Common Core or just standards in general? We had the textbooks, that was it. So that might give you a good indication of the timeline of my career. Anyway, back in the 90s, especially when I first started teaching, close reading really wasn't something we did in first grade. But over the years, we realized, you know, maybe it should be something that they should do. It's going to really help them with their comprehension. I don't know about you, but my students always found it mind-blowing that there was more to reading than just decoding the words on the text. You mean now I have to put all those together and understand what you're talking about? I just barely learned how to read the word. If you get to know me a little bit better, you'll know I like a challenge. And I'm kind of stubborn and I don't like to give up. So I spent a year in my classroom really trying to learn how to adapt close reading for first graders. I wanted them to learn how to annotate. I wanted to find some really good close reading passages that would help them. I wanted to know how to reread the same passage and have them build on their learning and not run out of things to teach. I wanted them to find more meaning each time they read it. But most of all, I wanted them to be excited and confident readers, and I really realized close reading was what I needed to do. But it was hard. It was messy. It was hard on the days where I didn't turn in my attendance and I'm getting phone calls from the office and my coffee's still sitting on the counter and and then it's going to be iced coffee by the time, I get to drink it. Yeah, those days weren't great. I skipped things that I shouldn't have. I didn't do things correctly. But with practice, I learned which steps I should do and which steps I could skip. Actually, I didn't really even skip anything. I changed some things so my students could have a better understanding of it. Everything is listed in the free guide to close reading for younger readers. It is all there. I've written it out. I spent a long time really thinking back on how I learned it and the foundations of my close reading in my classroom. Here's what you're going to learn from the close reading guide. You're going to learn to have conversations with your students, and they're going to learn to have conversations with each other. You're going to teach them how to talk to each other. Conversation is so important, and everybody has a device in front of them anymore, and it's just, they don't talk the way we used to talk to each other, especially with how much screen time we've had over the last couple of years. I've written a lot of tips in there about how to speak to each other and, how to discuss the things and how to be respectful about it. And actually I found out that it helped in other areas in my classroom as well. You'll find that your students gain more confidence when they read. Instead of seeing a hard word or part of their reading passages, you'll see that they can notate it and then understand that it's something difficult, move on, which a lot of kids just stop and freeze like a deer in headlights, but they'll move on, and then they'll also come back and really try to figure that hard part out. And that's what you'll teach them in close reading, but then you'll start seeing that independently when they're reading, and either for an assessment or maybe independently at your reading centers, that they're going to use the same skills. And I've put a lot of that in the guide for you. Do you have a lot of time to teach vocabulary, like really teach it? I know I didn't. But your students' vocabulary and word usage is really going to help with these close reading strategies. Not only will it improve, but it's also going to give them ownership of these words, and they're going to be excited to use them in new and different ways. In the guide, I'm going to show you how they're going to be vocabulary masters, not only just finding out what the word means, but then using it in a new context for them. And I think best of all, I'm going to show you how you can fit vocabulary in your already busy schedule. You'll also have some great classroom management techniques during close reading. I know when I had my struggling readers and we were doing something hard and they didn't have that confidence to really try to read and to learn what they're reading about, then they would get really frustrated and either daydream, or I'd have a lot of off-task behavior. So these strategies are going to lead to a lot less frustration for your students. And when you see confident behavior from your students, you're going to have a lot less unwanted behavior. My kiddos benefited so much, academically from close reading, but I was also kind of surprised that it helped with their responsibility as well. There's a lot of responsibilities and different tasks that your students need to do during a close reading lesson, and I go through, in fact, I give you 2 weeks of lesson plans to do that. But all of a sudden, I noticed during other times, like when we were cleaning up after centers, everything was put away. And it's because of the practice and the routines that I put in place during close reading. And then I started doing that in other times during my day, and it really helped my students become more responsible. I wasn't expecting that. As an elementary teacher, it is hard to adapt close reading to the needs of your elementary students. I wish I had a manual when I first started, but I didn't. So I wanted to give you a head start on how to teach close reading to your younger readers. And the free guide is going to teach you strategies that is going to make your close reading lessons really, really successful. The lesson plans include vocabulary, comprehension ideas, interactive writing ideas, as well as what supplies and tools you need, and again, the classroom management techniques to get your routine in place. So let's recap. You're going to want to download the guide. You're going to show your students how to annotate. You're going to really talk about how to have that conversation with your students about vocabulary and comprehension. You'll learn which passages are great for your students and which ones to avoid. You're going to really know what to look for when you're looking for those close reading passages. You'll learn what to teach on each day of the week. You'll learn what you need to know to choose the best close reading passages. You'll be improving your students' vocabulary development with your close reading lessons. I'm going to teach you techniques to improve your students' comprehension skills. They're going to really learn to look at the passage and ask questions that are not one-word answers. I'm going to give you extension activities that take that close reading passage and the topic further than just the one page in front of them. Which supplies you need and which ones you don't. You probably already have them laying around. It's helpful to know what you already have because you already probably have it on hand. And I'm going to give you classroom management techniques to get that routine in place. And then, of course, the lesson plans and the reading passages to get you started. The link to download the close reading guide is in the description below. And I hope you grab it today and start teaching close reading in your classroom.